Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a video for you about how utterly stupid the PlayStation 5 Pro is, and this also counts for the Xbox Series X Pro. I am not a fan of these console prototypes or ideas at all for a lot of reasons that we're going to get into, but we'll do some of the technical stuff first. This information is coming from Chinese TV manufacturer TCL. I actually really like their TVs. I think they're probably the best value, you get the most TV per dollar on the market. And of course they work with console manufacturers and all sorts of technology companies to make sure that what they're manufacturing is going to be compatible years in the future. Well, they did their presentation and somebody there had a cell phone and they were taking screenshots, and in the presentation they talked about the PlayStation 5 Pro and the upcoming new version of the Xbox having new specs. So it can output from 60 to 120 FPS, and notably 120 FPS in 4K. So they're working on 120 FPS 4K TVs. They also say the PlayStation 5 Pro and probably the Xbox can output in 8K, literally 8K, and also probably 8K 60 FPS, which is outrageously demanding. My 3090 Ti could never hope to do a thing like that. And they're going to be running on the new AMD Radeon RX 7700 XT technology. A little bit of a mouthful there. I don't really keep up with AMD stuff. I'm kind of an NVIDIA fangirl over here. So all of that is good, I guess, in a technical sense. You know, the numbers went up. It supports more. 120 FPS 4K sounds like a pretty good goal. But the problem is, nobody games like that right now. The games we have don't support that. The games in the future won't support that because they all have to be cross-gen because there's not enough consoles to begin with. That's what's frustrating about this. People can't buy PlayStation 5s today. People can't. Xbox Series X is a little harder to get, not super easy to get. I personally have seen neither of these consoles on store shelves where I live in Plano, Texas. It could be a little different where you live. I see the prices kind of go up and down with gouging on eBay and other places, but I know there's a ton of gamers out there that would like to have the next gen consoles, but can't. And because of that, almost every big game that comes out now is cross-generational. There's a PlayStation 4 version, there's a PlayStation Pro version, there's a PlayStation 5 digital and a PlayStation 5 regular version, and then all the Xboxes. And because we have to develop these cross-generational games, it actually limits the quality that you can get on the new generation, and it limits the quality on the old generation because it's a waste of resources and you're building things that are compatible against across wildly different specifications on these consoles. And I think it generally defeats the point of the consoles to begin with. The whole reason that people buy something like a PlayStation 5, which is what we're picking on today, is because they don't want to be a PC gamer. They don't want to be over here with me fighting a battle with my power supply, making sure my 3090 doesn't overheat, or oh my god, my computer got shocked and now I have to change the motherboard or check the CPU cooler and all this kind of complicated stuff. They want a box, a TV box, a Roku box, an old cable box. You just put it down, get your controller, sit down, and play, and it plays great. And the benefit to this is that with standard hardware, game developers can develop around that standard hardware. They'll learn the performance profiles very well, and they can make great games. But when you launch, it's difficult enough launching a next generation of consoles at a time where people can't buy them because of the chip shortages, and then there's two different versions of them. You'll ultimately end up having at least 5, if not 6 or 7 different versions of the same game. You'll have... All right, I'm repeating myself a little bit about the cross-generation games. I think you get the point. But the other point that I wanted to make, 2 of them actually, is that the specs that the PlayStation 5 Pro and the new Xbox output are ones that affect 0.1% of gamers. The majority of gamers do not game on 4K TVs. A lot of them game on 1080p TVs. A lot of them these days use computer monitors or smaller specific gaming TVs because the giant living room ones are designed to maximize cost per size, and they usually have really bad input delay. On top of that, not many of these TVs support 120 FPS. Not all of the games support 120 FPS. Very few things support 8K, and if you have it 8K, I have no idea how you're going to render or play this at above 15 FPS. I guess you could just run a really old game at a really crazy resolution, right? But I couldn't think offhand where I would go get an 8K monitor around me, except I could just Google them and probably find a really expensive one. So they're building a new generation of expensive consoles to hit specs that only ultra enthusiasts will be able to enjoy. Only the true 0.1% elite gamers will be able to experience any of this, and probably only at a handful of games. So that seems like a big waste of time, but I think it's not just a waste of time, but a true counterintuitive measure, because you're inevitably going to have to use manufacturing resources to build these new Xboxes and new PlayStation 5s, where you could be focusing on making the old ones more available. Use the same chips, make the PlayStation 5 regular more available, make it cheaper, find a faster, better way to manufacture, do something so that more gamers can actually get these consoles, and then the quality of games can begin to rise to actually be next generation. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I've been saying this for like 2 or 3 years now, but the next generation is rough, guys. I would say I don't know why this happens, but I do know why. All of these companies, they kind of, if you look at it from a microeconomic perspective, they all run little monopolies. Sony has a monopoly on whatever the PlayStation is and the games. And one of the ways that you can make more money from your monopolies is segmenting them into even more niche sort of monopolies. And they've got all these graphs and curves, and you find the equilibrium and whatever point is the most profit. And somebody somewhere down the chain at Sony and Microsoft, sitting there furiously moving the beads around on their abacus to do these calculations, has determined that it will make them more money in the long run to make a PlayStation 5 Pro than it will to just manufacture more current PlayStation 5s. Some accountant, some analyst, some firm somewhere has said that this is the way to more money. And that's the way they're going to go. They're going to chase the almighty dollar. That's how all our business works, and it's very annoying. And by the time this generation is done, I would not be surprised if there are 2 or 3 different versions of the PS5 Pro or the PS5.5 or some of this kind of stuff. And it makes consoles less appealing for me. It's actually getting to be a little bit, it's catching up to PC in complexity in terms of hardware. So not a good thing. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm salty. Maybe I'm being a PC elitist because I put my consoles away a while ago. But I am completely done with this 7 different console launch version, cross-generation, Ultra Pro plus Max, Ultra nonsense with consoles. I was happier just having Xbox One, 360, PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4. And developers, even with lesser hardware, would find ways to make better games because they were just used to working on the systems. Okay, repeating myself. Angry. It's an angry video. I'm going to put all this negativity away. The next video is probably going to be something much more positive. If you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.